Hello, my wonderful little collections of bones. It's me, Glass Lotuses, your friendly and mildly eerie digital artist, writer, and cat lover. How are you doing today? I hope you've had a wonderful week, as it's getting quite warm outside lately, and I really don't want to think about the fact I am in an 80-degree room right now. Let's talk about a god that'll put us in a better mindset. Today, I want to talk about the next god in our pantheon, the god of frost. Unsurprisingly, the god of frost works with the god of water. Now, let's get into it. Neve is the god of frost, and while she is beloved now and worshipped happily today, in the beginning she was feared. Her magic typically spelled the coming of hardship for humanity. For a long time, she was thought of as primarily the god of winter. Of course, as fall comes to a close and temperatures drop, the plants die back, and your food quantity is essentially set to whatever you harvested until the next growing season. This relationship with the mortals made it difficult for Neve to gain essentia. Essentia is the energy by which all things are created and structured within the universe. All things are made up of and shaped by essentia, their essential components, if you will. I'll explain it more later, but it is also the energy that the gods need to function and shape the world, and it is acquired through various means, but primarily belief. Active worship is best, but of course, if the mortals dislike a god and view that god's actions as unchanging no matter what they do, then they will not engage in worship. The mortals would not worship a god who brought them cold and starvation. Thus, Neve had a problem on her hands. She could potentially go a more aggressive route and show them that in years they worship her, the winters were milder, and in years they didn't, the winters would last longer and the winds would blow more frigid. But mild winters have their own tolls. If the winters were too mild, snow would not build up in the mountains, and there would not be enough snow runoff come spring to sustain the rivers. She must keep the water cycle in mind, even if the humans were unhappy. She could not make every year a mild winter if they caught on, nor could she have every winter be harsh if they didn't. Neve leaned towards kinder methods in general. Unlike her overall frigid appearance suggests, she is not cold of heart. She devised a plan to make herself more appealing to mortal worshippers, a plan with 3 phases. In the first phase, Neve claimed the cold and mountainous lands of the world, primarily the lands to the north of where our story takes place now. She populated these regions with glacial and frost fairies similar to her own appearance. These fairies could easily present frost magic to the other people who inhabited the world, who did not themselves innately have this ability. The fairies could create refined frost essentia in liquid or crystalline form and share it for use. The second phase of this was to ensure that it spread. She prompted her new people to share both the essentia and the capabilities it unlocked. This allowed for technological developments in the world which had not previously been available, primarily within the realms of food preparation and storage. Of course, people began to add ice to beverages and use the essentia to chill and store food, and this in and of itself was a good start to easing the rest of the world's opinions of the god of frost, but Neve was not done yet. Lastly, Neve bestowed a prophetic dream upon the humans. Calcia was the original human kingdom, and it was here that Neve would stage her grand finale. She started by using just a little magic to cause one of the refrigeration chambers within the palace kitchen storage rooms to overchill their dairy just enough to cause some ice to start to form in the heavy cream. One of the palace staff brought the resulting thick cream to the head chef, who didn't think much of it at first. That night, though, Neve pushed it a bit further, and the head chef of the royal court awoke the next day from a fantastically vivid dream. She rushed to the palace kitchens and began to create a dessert that she had seen in her mind's eye. She combined cream, eggs, sugar, and some spices, and carefully controlled the freezing of the mixture with continual agitation. The result was the first ice cream. The dessert was presented to the Calcian royal family on a particularly hot day, and the family members unanimously enjoyed it. They then had it presented to the royal families of other nations who visited, all of which demanded to be taught how to make it, and so spread the love of ice cream. While not official, Basker, the god of fire, was of course thought of as the original god of food. But with Neve's additions to the culinary arts, she too was brought into this fold. Works of art dedicated to both were often found in the corners or on the walls of restaurants. Temples dedicated to the culinary arts and appreciations of food taught cooking classes regularly, and traveling chefs teaching cuisines from across the continent were welcomed and provided lodging in these sacred temples to Basker and Neve. These two were not the last of the culinary gods, though, and I will get into the final member of this little group later. It became common practice amongst the Chalcians to say a small prayer to the three gods of food, to thank them for their meals before eating. Hearths and ovens were engraved with spells, prayers, and markings for Basker, or adorned with a small hearth dragon image or figurine. Their refrigerators and freezers, which often looked more like cabinets, were adorned with the same spells, prayers, and markings, but for Neve, and with snowflake and butterfly motifs for the frost god and her fairies. In this drawing in particular, I definitely had more of an idea about what I wanted for this god than I did for the others. I love the color blue, and of course, with frost being the theme, who better to give a blue motif? I also kind of wanted to contrast the springtime delicate vibe of butterflies with the wintertime delicate vibe of snowflakes. So that's how we get to a frost fairy. Frost as a word also just sounds nice with the word fairy, in my opinion. Given the blue vibe, I also wanted to incorporate one of my favorite types of butterflies, the wings of the pipevine swallowtail. When I was going to college, I would always bike to class, and for some reason, the bike path I took always had pipevine caterpillars trying to cross the road. Often, I would stop and move them to the side that they were trying to get to, so they wouldn't get crushed by oncoming bikes. And I always loved seeing their pretty blue wings when they finally did turn into butterflies. I wanted to incorporate this aesthetic into Neve here because of that. I made her fingers and the tips of her ears black for a kind of frostbitten look. At the time I was drawing this, I had come across a video on TikTok of somebody who had gotten severe frostbite so badly that their fingers had essentially died and turned hard and black. Not necessarily a video for those with a weak stomach, but I thought it was cool and would fit a frost deity well to kind of speak to that certain type of injury. Lastly, another element I wanted to incorporate was the concept that dark eye and face makeup helps prevent snow blindness. Snow is extremely reflective, and since your brow ridge and cheekbones stick out around your eyes, light can bounce off of them and into your eyes. In theory, wearing dark makeup around your eyes and reducing the amount of bounced light can help reduce the effects of snow blindness. So I gave her a dark band around her eyes for this reason, along with some dots to just go back to the pipevine swallowtail vibe. Those were my primary inspirations for Neve. Lastly, her name was derived from the word Neve, which is a specific type of ice, but Neve is also a girl's name derived from the Latin word for snow. I've usually heard this name pronounced like Neve, but the word for ice is more like Neve. Personally, I prefer Neve, but feel free to skewer me in the court of public opinion if you would like. That is all for this cool little lady. Next time we shall talk about the God of Time. Thank you so much for listening to my ramblings. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are interested in learning more about this story, the world, and the characters within it, please like and subscribe. Good night.